Pokemon is a very interesting franchise. Maybe you've heard of it before? It's a world filled with a variety of monsters, all with their own unique shapes, sizes, appearances, looks, colors, types, abilities, moves, niches, ecosystems, lore. I said types already, but that's what we're talking about today. Yes, every Pokemon has some sort of typing, whether it's one type or two. It doesn't really matter. They've all got at least one, you know? And one type in particular that I feel goes a little bit underappreciated a lot of the time, probably the rock type. That's my pick. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments down below. It's no secret to me, somebody who thinks about this topic a lot of the time, that rock types don't really get a whole lot of spotlight from pretty much any angle of the community. Whether it's from Game Freak making the games and the Pokemon, or it's the community, you know, playing the games and enjoying the Pokemon, no one really seems to talk about rock types all that often. But why? You may be compelled to bring up its lack of competitive viability, and while you'd certainly be correct about its lackluster traits, that certainly doesn't stop other people from talking about other bad types. Just look at all the videos out there talking about ice, or normal, or even bug. So maybe then, it's just the concept itself. You know, rocks. Most people in the real world are not avid geologists, and a lot of the cool rocks that we have in the real world are given different names like gems, or jewels, or diamonds. So when people hear the word rock, well, they're gonna think of a rock. No duh. Or maybe it's much more simple than that. Maybe every single rock type is just ugly and hideous, and no one likes looking at them, or using them, or thinking about them, so nobody ever talks about them. Who knows? But that's not gonna stop me from talking about every single rock type right here and now. If nobody else is gonna do it, somebody has to. And I'm willing to bet that I probably think about a lot of these forgotten little shitters way more than you do, pal. So join me as we discuss every single rock type that's ever existed, and hopefully, by the end of this video, we can all learn how to respect the rock type. Okay, I know I just lured you in like 2 seconds ago with that whole fake mystery of, oh my god, why does no one think about rocks? I think I know why, though. This is a pretty obvious answer. You probably thought of it already. It's the ground type. Ground type is why no one thinks about rocks. Conceptually, no two other types are as similar to each other as rock and ground are. You could make an argument for water and ice, but if you do, I'm going to double crit flinch you with Rock Slide and end your VGC run. So keep that to yourself. Now, most franchises that dabble into the elemental systems will usually just have one core earth element, which makes sense. You know, rocks and dirt, they're both part of the earth. However, back in Generation 1, Game Freak had a million billion different types at play, and they had to figure out a way to intuitively make these type interactions make sense. At least the best that they could. And someone at Game Freak realized that it would make sense for a bird, you know, flying up in the sky, it makes sense for them to not really give a shit about an earthquake happening down on the ground. But that's not going to stop him from still trying to throw a rock at its face. So, boom. Ground, rock, they're separate things. Now theoretically, splitting up rock and ground into two separate categories would give you more design flexibility within each types to make them feel different from one another. However, rock kinda got the short end of the stick here. While ground can encapsulate many different things, like dirt, sand, bones, the ground itself, obviously, rock got stuck with rocks, you know? And while ground types can seemingly get any sort of stat spread Game Freak wants from them, like fast offensive sweepers, or, you know, bulky tanks, or even whatever the hell this is, rock types are typecasted quite a bit more often, I find. More often than not, your big fancy new rock type is going to be very physical, very bulky, and very slow, with not a whole lot of in between. And to be fair, intuitively, this does make sense, considering what a rock is, you know? Rocks aren't really on the move all that often unless they're falling down from a cliff or something. So based on that intuition, it would make sense for rock to be a very bulky defensive type. Right?
Hey guys, it's editing me from the future here. I need to make this video shorter than it is, because look at how long it is already. So to summarize everything that I'm trying to say in this segment, Rock types are not that good defensively. They have lots of weaknesses, and they're very exploitable. Anything a rock type can take on, a steel type can usually take on like 1,000 times better, unless it's a fire type. And this contributes to rock feeling like underwhelming and forgettable. Okay, goodbye.
At this point, the only saving grace that rock has in an in-game playthrough is the fact that rock types are usually a lot more common than steel types are. But by that same token, they're usually just about as common, if not less common in the early game than ground types. So, you know, Now, offensively, all three of these types do act very differently from one another. And in this realm, rock blows steel out of the f***ing water, and it's at least on par with ground, which is nice to see. However, these offensive traits don't really matter as much as the defensive ones in my opinion, because any Pokemon can use a rock-type move as long as they're able to learn it. Only rock-type Pokemon have to deal with being a rock-type and trying to maneuver themselves around all these very common weaknesses that they have. And you know, it is true that it's nice to have really powerful stab no matter what type you are, but there is one teeny, tiny, really unfortunate problem that rock-type moves kind of run into more often than not, and that's accuracy. For some reason, Game Freak just seems to hate rock-type moves. Almost all of them have at least some degree of inaccuracy, even if they're directly comparable to another move that is 100% accurate. Thank you, Game Freak. Alright, one last thing I'd like to talk about with the rock type in general before we actually get into the Pokemon is that I have three buffs that I would like to propose for the rock type to make its defensive traits just a little bit better, you know, actually give you a reason to use a rock type. My first suggestion, give rock types a passive immunity to flinching. This might seem a little weird and pulled out of my ass, but have you ever seen a rock flinch? Didn't think so. In VGC, Fake Out is a very common move, so having an immunity to flinching is a huge deal in that format. Rock types are also more susceptible to flinching than any other type on average because they are the slowest type in the game, giving most Pokemon an opportunity to hit them before they can hit back. Rock Slide is also one of the most infamous flinching moves in the franchise, so, you know, it kind of makes sense if rock types would be immune to Rock Slide's secondary effect. And with that same logic, I would like to propose an immunity to Stealth Rock damage. Stealth Rock is one of the most important moves ever added to competitive singles, and having an immunity to it is a godsend. Just look at how good heavy-duty boots are. This would be a really big buff to any rock types that have a secondary type that make them weak to rock, and honestly, it would just free up item flexibility for these Pokemon and actually give you a reason to want to use them. And then lastly, this is the change that I'm most iffy on, but I'd like to hear opinions on it. Give Sturdy the ability to remove hazards when you switch in. I don't know if this should work every single time. Maybe it only works once per battle, or maybe it only works if you switch in while you're at full HP. And this isn't even directly a rock-type buff, because there are lots of Pokemon that are not rock types that still get the Sturdy ability. However, Sturdy is way more common on rocks than any other type, and I think thematically it makes enough sense, and removing hazards is a huge deal in competitive, and having an ability to do it passively without being spin blocked or Goldengo blocked, that would be a really big deal. But enough with that, let's actually get into the Pokemon now, because that's what you're all probably here for. So, let's start with one of the most common trends found within the Pokemon franchise, and that is the Rock-type 3-stage line.
Oh, baby, a triple! Oh, yeah!
Who better to start off with than Geodude, Graveler, and Golem? These are the OG 3-stage Rock-type lines, and to be honest, they are the most boring. Sorry, guys. There's just not a whole lot of cohesion with this line, and they pretty much act as filler in almost every single game. I will give them this, though. They have a very good level-up moveset. You don't really need to spend a whole lot of your TMs on these guys, and they hit good enough. I mean, Golem is strong, but I can't really say much about this line, and I don't think most people really would. Geodude is a rock with arms. Graveler is a big pile of rocks with 4 arms. And then Golem is a reptile inside of a pile of rocks, but they're not rocks, because according to the Pokedex, that's just its skin. Is its skin made of rocks? Is its skin just rock-like? I don't like thinking about this. Golem is a weird guy. And Game Freak seems to be intent on making them as boring as possible. You know, they used to have Soul. They used to learn Steamroller. That's fucking awesome. But even in Gen 8, they got rid of Steamroller as a move in general, and then they didn't even give these guys Ice Spinner. Their whole thing is rolling around. Give it Ice Spinner! But no, it can only get Hard Press. Why? To be fair, though, they did try to spice up this family by giving them a regional form in Alola, Alolan Geodude, and Alolan Graveler, and Alolan Golem. These guys, instead of being the very boring rock and ground type, they are the much cooler rock and electric. Unfortunately, I still don't really have much to say about them. I like the fact that Geodude became a different color, and I don't understand why Graveler and Golem reverted back to the old ones. Why is Geodude even different in the first place if you're not gonna make the rest of them different? And they have funny facial hair. Ooh, wow. Golem's taser, railgun, cannon thing is kinda cool. However, they already added an electric-type railgun Pokemon in this exact same region, so it's kind of weird that they did it twice. Overall, the Golem line, pretty forgettable, and I think the Alolan Golem line is probably the weakest family of regional forms within Alola, unfortunately. Now, we're going to go out of order here, because the next 3-stage line I'd like to talk about is Roggenrola, Boldore, and Gigalith. These guys were pretty clearly designed to be the functional replacement for the other guys, and thankfully for us, this line is way cooler than Golem's line ever was. Roggenrola is very cute and silly looking, kind of looking like a pencil sharpener, but apparently that's its ear, for some reason. Boldore is very alien looking, it's got that tripod look to it, and then Gigalith is just fucking awesome. You know, if you're gonna make your rock big and slow and bulky, make it look big and slow and bulky. I love the colors on this line, the dark blue that they all have, highlighted by their yellows, and then on Boldore and Gigalith, you obviously have the giant red gems jutting out of their body. It just looks really, really cool. I love these guys a lot. And their moveset, or their learn set rather, isn't quite as good as Golem's is, but they look so much cooler that I don't even really care. Next up, we've got one of the most solid 3-stage lines in the entire franchise. Aron, Lairon, and Aggron. These guys are fucking sick. I don't think I know a single person who hates this line. Aron is adorable. Look at its little mask face. I love it, and his bright blue eyes are so big and round. Oh, so cute, so adorable. I love him. Lairon is this cool, like, sort of teenager-y looking lizard. Kind of looks like a bearded dragon with its whole little chin thing it's got going on. Very cool. And Aggron is just, like, a fucking kaiju dinosaur with armor. That's sick. That is awesome. Everybody loves Aggron. The only gripe I have with this line is that Aron takes fucking forever to evolve. Why do you get it at level 11 and then not have it evolve into Lairon until level 32? Aggron at level 42? Fine. It's a big, beastly looking, scary looking dude. Lairon, though? Make that like 10 levels sooner. Like, you're not breaking the game by doing that. You catch these guys right before you fight Brawly in Generation 3. Why? Anyways, though. These guys are sick. I love them. I don't think anyone would disagree with me saying that. Next up, we've got Roly-Poly, Carkol, and Colossal. Wow, we're back to designs. Okay, to be fair, these guys still are cooler than Golem, in my opinion. Roly-Poly is very cute. It's got that sort of Roggenrola charm to it. Spinning around on that wheel, very interesting. Carkol is so goofy and stupid that I can't help but love it. I can't say it's good, but I think it's really funny, and I like it because of that. And Colossal is just kinda ugly. Golem, I said, was kind of forgettable and lame. Colossal, I actively do not like looking at a lot of the time, unfortunately. They do have a cool typing, as bad as it is. Rock and Fire is quite interesting. Now, credit where credit is due. This is one of the funniest VGC Pokemon I've ever seen. These stats, very poor. Not very good. No one looks at this and thinks they've got a superstar on their hands. But then Game Freak went ahead and gave Colossal a Gigantamax form, and gave it one of the most broken moves in the game, as well as one of the most broken abilities in the game. Even though Colossal is super duper slow most of the time, if you hit this guy with a fire or water type move, he's going to outspeed your entire team 10 times over. Not quite that fast, but still very fast. And G-Max Volcalith just absolutely destroying your opponent's HP bar just for being clicked one time. Yeah, these guys were very funny. It's nice to see a successful rock type, because you don't really see a whole lot of those. But, I just don't really like looking at Colossal, unfortunately. Big Marge Simpson hair, and its stupid mouth guard face thing. Its Gigantamax is a little bit better, I suppose. What I am a big fan of, though, is Knackley, Knacklestack, and Garganical. I fucking love this line. Knackley is a very cute little Mario mushroom-looking guy. And then Knacklestack, that's just a Minecraft mob. You can't convince me otherwise. Its limbs are even detached from its body, and those are like that little shape with its eyes. Those are like Minecraft eyes, if I've ever seen them. And Garganical, oh my god, he's so cool looking. Got this giant Aztec pyramid made of salt-looking guy. He's got the big, beefy, square arms and legs, and you can see, like, the layers of sediment on his limbs. This guy is just awesome. I also really love their shiny forms. I know people wanted them to be pink, and I would love them if they were pink as well, but, orange is one of my favorite colors, so I'm a big fan of this. I've been a fan of Garganical since day one. I'm a big leak fiend. As soon as the new Pokedexes start leaking online, I'm looking for everything I can. And as soon as I saw this picture of Garganical, I fell in love. Also, that's just a sick name. Having MACL in all their names. Mwah. Chef's kiss. I would also be remiss if I did not mention Garganical's competitive success in singles, because this guy is annoying as shit to deal with. Game Freak realized that rock types aren't very good defensively, so they made Garganical good defensively. Purifying Salt, just giving it a random ghost resistance, and also making it immune to all status. That's cool. Remember how water and steel types kind of make rock types hate their lives? Get Assaulted on. Salt Cure. Boom, 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 boom. You're out of here. Garganical, he's sick. I love him. I'm really glad he was successful as well. And, yeah. Awesome, awesome design, especially for a pure rock type. Awesome. Now, we do have one more three-stage line to talk about. They don't quite fit with the others all that well, and you may argue that they don't really belong on here, because all these other lines that we've talked about, you can usually find them very early on in your journey. These guys, though, that is not the case at all, because we're talking about Larvitar, Pupitar, and Tyranitar. This line is really cool. Larvitar just kind of looks like a little baby Tyranitar, which is very cute. And Pupitar is interesting because these guys are very reptilian looking, but they have a weird, like, pupa middle stage form, like a bug, which I'm cool with. I think that's pretty cool. And then Tyranitar itself, I mean, it's Tyranitar. Look at it. It's awesome. You like it. I like it. Everyone likes Tyranitar. Also, it's the only rock and dark type Pokemon in the franchise, and it's also the only rock type pseudo-legendary.
Hey, it's me from the future again. I forgot to mention anything about the Pokedex. These guys have stupid Pokedexes. Larvitar eats an entire mountain, Tyranitar can just destroy a mountain, and Pupitar can fly. So, do with that what you will.
This guy, what can you say? There is one more thing you can say, actually. It has a Mega Evolution. I don't really care for Mega Tyranitar that much. It's pretty middle of the road. It's Tyranitar, but it's bigger. Tyranitar did not really need a Mega Evolution, and it's not really used all that often compared to other Megas, but, you know, it's there, I guess. It looks a little bit more awkward, in my opinion. It looks a bit more stiff. Like, it can't really move very well, but, you know, it's fine. There's worse Megas. I was just talking about how these last two rock types had some pretty good competitive success. Tyranitar is the GOAT of rock types. There is no rock type that will ever have a resume as fantastic as Tyranitar's. And that's just a fact. Now, obviously, he gets a little bit of help because he is a pseudo-legendary, meaning he has absolutely insane jacked-up stats compared to most other Pokemon. Tyranitar also just learns, like, every f***ing move under the sun for some reason, so you can run pretty much anything you want on it, and it brings incredible utility to your team simply by switching in because it has Sandstream. Now, I did not mention this before, but during a Sandstorm, all rock types will have a passive 50% buff to their special defense stat, which is very nice. Most rock types have much higher physical bulk than they do special bulk, so having this nice little patch up to their weaker special defense stat is a very nice buff. However, I think this buff served Tyranitar more than it served most rock types, because if you have Tyranitar on your team, you're probably not going to run any other rock types alongside it. And this shows, because if we take a look at OU from Generation 3 to 8, where Tyranitar had Sandstream, not a whole lot of other rock types going on. There's a few, but not a lot.
All the little birds on Jaybird Street love to hear the rhyming go.
Tweet, tweet, tweet.
Rockin' Robert.
What? I thought we were doing Rockin' Robin.
No, this is my extremely mild parody, Rockin' Robert.
This next section I have appropriately titled, Yeah, That's a Rock, because, yeah, that's a rock. First up, Onix from Generation 1. Ooh, I love Onix. This guy's so cool. Just a giant Pokemon, first of all. This guy's like, what, 28 feet long or something, according to the handbook I had as a child. It's a very simple design and very well executed. Just a giant snake made out of giant rocks. That's awesome. Unfortunately, its stats look like this, and in Generation 1, that was a fully evolved Pokemon, so it was stuck like that forever. But I've always liked Onix, and as a kid, when I was like, I don't know, 9 maybe, I wanted to dress up as Onix for Halloween. So I made my own little homemade costume with my mom. If I have any pictures of it, here you go. And someone at school, when I was at the Halloween dance party or whatever we had, one of my classmates asked me if I was the Tin Man. And I didn't know who the Tin Man was. So, fuck you. Yeah, Onix is cool. And I like it, you know. Next up, we've got our very first Rock-type legendary Pokemon added to the franchise, Regirock. Now, this may be controversial, but Regirock is the best Regi. Don't even try to argue with me. The other Regis are cool, you know, don't come at me. I'm a fan of the Regis as a whole family, even the new ones. I like them all. But Regirock, he's just the best, okay? I don't make the rules. He's got the coolest, most intricate design. He's got those nice orange highlights. He's got the asymmetrical body. I don't know. What is there to say about Regirock? It has funny dex entries. Apparently, scientists are able to just test this thing, and it has no pulse, because it's rocks. Also, all of the rocks that make up its body are from completely different parts of the world, which is very interesting foreshadowing, because I believe it was a Gen 3 dex entry that said this, and obviously it was made by Regigigas, who, you know, pulled the continents together, but you didn't know that in Gen 3, so why do all its rocks come from all over the world, you might be thinking. Very nice foreshadowing, Game Freak. Also, this shiny, I love it. While we're on the topic of Rock-type legendaries, however, let's talk about Diancie. And while we're talking about Diancie, let's talk about Carbon, because these guys are very closely connected to one another. These Pokemon were added in Generation 6, and they are the first Rock and Fairy types in the franchise. Also, the only ones, I think. They have a very interesting lifestyle. These Pokemon kind of behave like ants or bees. They have very similar stats to one another. Diancie can actually just do things, while Carbink can't. And Diancie can also Mega Evolve, which Carbink can't do. Diancie is the only Generation 6 Pokemon to actually get a Mega Evolution, which is pretty interesting. And I like this one a lot. Its stats are absolutely insane. It's got one of the craziest stat transformations for any Mega Evolution, in my opinion. And this is, again, one of the very few viable competitive Rock types. Also, one of the only fast rock types, which is very, very refreshing. And Diamond Storm is a very cool move, 100 base power, with a 50% chance to boost your defense by 2 stages, which is ridiculous. This is especially good in newer generations where Diancie has access to Body Press, which does more damage depending on your defense stat. Overall, these guys, they're kind of, you know, whatever. I like them, I'm glad we have them, and they have really good shinies, which I've been saying quite a bit so far. But, yeah, Carbink is cute. I think I might like it a little bit more than Diancie, but, yeah, I don't know. Good Pokemon. Good Pokemon. Alright, let's move away from some legendaries, and let's just go to some weirdos. Solrock and Lunatone.
Huh?
If you had to name forgettable rock types, these guys would probably be up there. But, you know, I've come to appreciate these rocks a lot more in recent years. Now, it's pretty easy to understand why these guys are forgotten, because they're very similar to one another. Obviously, one is a sun and one is a moon, so, you know, they're not the same Pokemon. But they are both rock and psychic type, and they both have the levitate ability. Their stats are also the same, except the physical and the specials are just flipped with each other. They also don't really move all that much. These guys are some of the most static Pokemon in the franchise. Even other rock types will have, you know, at least a part of their body that can move around. These guys, they can spin and blink. That's about all they've got going for them. They're just kind of weird, and I kind of like them for that. Solrock gets quite a bit of fire and sun-based attacks, while Lunatone gets a lot of ice and moon-based attacks, which is a nice little way to make these guys separate from each other. And when these guys were introduced in Generation 3, types were still designated as physical or special by default. And in this context, Solrock can get better use out of its rock-type moves than Lunatone can, and Lunatone can get better use out of their psychic moves than Solrock, which is, you know, kind of cool. They're also the ace Pokemon of Kate and Liza, so you are forced to see them, at least, you know, acknowledge their existence a little bit.
Hey guys, me again. Apparently recording without a script makes you very prone to making errors, so I have to completely redo the Pokedex section of this video, for these guys anyways. In Pokemon Emerald, it's stated that Lunatone was discovered 40 years ago, which doesn't really mean much on its own, you know, it's just kind of erroneous. But then when you move to Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, a full generation after these Pokemon were, you know, released, it's stated that Solrock is a brand new Pokemon, which is just weird. Does it imply that 40 years ago is still new in terms of Pokemon discoveries? Were these Pokemon not discovered at the same time, despite being so closely connected to each other? It's just odd. Moving on to the next Pokemon in our video, because I also did a bad job of ending this segment when I recorded before. Toodaloo!
Sticking with Generation 3 and 4, we've got Nosepass, and then its evolution, Probopass. If Probopass has 1 million fans, I am one of them. If he has 1,000 fans, I am one of them. If he has 100 fans, I am one of them. If he has 1 fan, I am that fan. If Probopass has 0 fans, then I have died. I might be the only person on the planet who likes Probopass. Everywhere, like, this guy's comment on, like, top 10 worst Pokemon lists, or this guy so stupid lists. But, look at the whimsy! Look at the whimsy and the joy that he brings. Nosepass is a solid design. You know, I like it. Having the Moai statue thing as a Pokemon, great. But then, after Nosepass was designed, we discovered that these statues are supposed to have the hats on them. So then in Generation 4, we get Probopass, and he gets a bigger nose. And because these guys, they were always compasses, right? Nosepass was like a compass, it was magnetic, it even has magnet pull. So then Probopass gets all this fibrous magnetic detail. It's a mustache. Alolan Golem had the same thing. It stole it from Probopass. Probopass is way cooler than Alolan Golem. Also, scientifically, this is canon. This is canon. A scientist in Pokemon made it. These things on Probopass, their scientific name is Mini Nose. They are mini noses. That is hilarious. Why do Pokemon hate? Why do people hate Probopass? Okay, calm down. Now, I do understand why people don't like Probopass. It is a pretty stupid design. I just like its stupidity. Also, I don't really understand why it's Rock and Steel type. I think Rock and Electric would not only be cooler, but make more thematic sense. Also, I don't understand why it doesn't have levitate. If you're going to give it a 4 times ground weakness, please give it levitate when it is legitimately levitating at all times. Other than that, though, I really like Probopass. I've used it in Pokemon Platinum like twice because you can evolve Nosepass literally the moment you catch it. So, you know, if you're struggling against Gardenia, use a Probopass for once. I don't know. And moving from one big rock statue-based design, we move to another. Stonejourner here from Sword and Shield. I never played Sword and Shield. However, Stonejourner is sold. I like this guy a lot. Kind of like Probopass, it's a pretty stupid design. It's literally just Stonehenge, but a Pokemon. I don't know though, I like it. It is weird that it is one of the faster rock types. I guess it kind of makes sense, because, you know, all the stones from Stonehenge were taken from a very far away place and brought over to where they are now. So, you know, I guess it travels a lot. I don't know, though. Stonehenge these days doesn't really move. But Stonejourner, it's funny, it's silly, it's stupid, I like it. These stats are also... wow.
It looks like I'm a go shell shocker. Shell shocker. Shell shocker.
Alright, this next category is oddly specific and weird, but I call it, look at my rocky shell. Because all these Pokemon have rocky shells. If there's any Pokemon to talk about the rocky shell of, it has gotta be Shuckle. I mean, pull up the stats. Those are pretty insane stats. Shuckle, introduced in Generation 2, the Bug and Rock type, the very first Bug and Rock type we ever got. And it holds the record for having the highest defensive stats of all time, still to this day. Now, because of its HP, Shuckle isn't that bulky, but it's still hilarious. Now, I don't really understand what Shuckle is supposed to be. Some people will claim that it's a turtle. Those people are fucking wrong. A turtle's not a bug, okay? This is a worm, or a leech, or something. A lamprey, I don't know. It's weird, but Shuckle is very cute, has an awesome shiny. I don't think anybody dislikes Shuckle. Very fun Pokemon to have exist. Now, while Shuckle is not a turtle, we do have quite a few rocky-shelled turtles in Pokemon. The first one I'd like to talk about is Dreadnought. I forgot the name there for a second. Now, Dreadnought, I'm not the biggest fan of, to be honest. I just think its shapes and its design are a little weird. It's very smooth and rounded in some places, but very jaggedy and sharp in other spots. I just don't think they really meshed the shapes very well together. It is funny how its neck will just do that. I think that's quite hilarious. I enjoy that part of it. Dreadnought is also the only other rock type to have a Gigantamax form, which I don't know, man. It's a big ship, I guess. One thing, though, one cool thing that I noticed with this design when I was putting this video together, all Gigantamax Pokemon have these clouds, and most of the time, they're just hanging up above the Pokemon's head, because where else are you going to put them? But on Gigantamax Dreadnought, the clouds are like going inside of its shell, which is a nice touch, nice attention to detail. I like that about it. Other than that, I don't really care about this Pokemon all that much, to be honest with you. However, it is an upgrade from Choodle. What the fuck is Choodle? Thank God this is not a rock type. If you'd like a much cooler rock type turtle, in my opinion, then look no further than Tortuga and Caracosta. Now, these are the first fossil Pokemon that we're going to be talking about today, and most of the time, fossil Pokemon are based off of extinct creatures. So it may be weird to see sea turtles being represented in this category of Pokemon. However, this does make sense. There have been lots of sea turtles in the past, and some really big ones as well. However, most of these extinct sea turtles are not actually directly related to the sea turtles that we have today. Tortuga is definitely a sea turtle. It's got a smug little smile on its face that I kind of like. And Caracosta, I like a lot. Putting it up on its back legs was a very good way of making it different from Tortuga and not just looking like a bigger version of the same Pokemon. And having these really big flippers that it can just, slap the shit out of you with, very funny. I like that a lot. And its shell is supposed to kind of look like a bulletproof vest, sort of. These guys are from the Unova region, so they are slightly based off of NYPD officers, from my understanding. So, giving them that nice police vest sort of look to them, and that very stern, sort of judgmental look, does a lot to elevate this design, in my opinion. While we're on the topic of fossil Pokemon with shells, we may as well knock out Ammonite and Amistar here. These guys are some of the first fossil Pokemon that were introduced in Generation 1. And it makes a lot of sense to have an Ammonite as a fossil mon. Ammonites have been one of the most common and successful aquatic organisms hanging out in the oceans. That was until about 65 million years ago, where most of them went extinct with the dinosaurs. Now, these guys are pretty simple designs. Ammonite is literally just an ammonite, and you put eyes on the front of its face. Boom, adorable design. Amistar, though, I'm not as big of a fan of. It's just kind of ammonite with spikes and more tentacles. Not very interesting. Now, I would love to see these guys get some sort of new form in the future with a new design, because ammonites could come in a whole bunch of different shapes. Look at all these ammonites. These guys are based off of the most common shape of ammonite that you'll find being sold in stores and whatnot. But these guys got weird and freaky, and I think it's a shame that Amistar didn't kind of lean into that. Have your basic cute little Ammonite guy, and if you made Amistar some weird freakazoid, I think it would have been a whole lot cooler. Next up, we move on to Magcargo. I love Magcargo so much. I've only grown to love it more over the years. Even as a kid, I really liked it. But this is just such a solid design and concept. A slug that's made out of lava, and then it evolves into a snail with drippy, droopy lava coming off of its body, and this molten rock shell to keep it safe. Awesome. I love Magcargo. Kind of like I said with Colossal, though, Rock and Fire is not the greatest typing competitively, and this is a Generation 2 Pokemon, so its stats are absolutely garbage. And in the original Gen 2 games, you couldn't even use Slugma until you defeat the Pokemon League and can move over to Kanto, which doesn't really make sense if it's supposed to be a Johto Pokemon, but whatever. There is one way to use Slugma in Johto, though, and it's only in the remakes, Heart Gold and Soul Silver. If you go to Violet City and go to the Pokemon Center and talk to this guy inside of the Pokemon Center, and then go to this website to figure out which specific password to give to this guy, he will give you one of 3 eggs. The options for this egg are Mareep, Wooper, and Slugma. There is literally no reason on planet Earth to get this Mareep or this Wooper egg, because you can catch Mareep by this point in the game, and you can catch Wooper as soon as you beat Falconer. Slugma, though, this is your only chance to get it in Johto. So get that Slugma egg to complete your Pokedex, fool. And I actually used Magcargo in my last playthrough of Heart Gold, and it was actually a lot of fun. I thought it would be complete garbage because its evolution level is so high, and it's Magcargo, but as long as you can give it the Flamethrower TM, this guy does pretty good work. Next up, we have Dwebble and Crustle. These guys are interesting because they're bug types, but they're crabs. Now, crabs are arthropods, which is the same family that has arachnids and insects, but they are the only bug-type crab Pokemon, which is interesting. Anyways, though, these guys are based off of hermit crabs, and this design just kind of writes itself. A hermit crab that uses a rock for a shell. Boom, you got Dwebble. But Crustle, though, that's a really cool design. Having this big sheet of just the layer of the earth on your back with all the sedimentary layers in between and the nice colors, Crustle is a sick design. Still don't understand why it's a bug type, but, I can live with that for a cool design. Also, this is one of the best costumes in Pokemon Unite. I'm never going to play Pokemon Unite, I think it's disgusting and horrible, but I really like the costumes that they have in that game. Finally, in this category, we have Minior from Generation 7, Sun and Moon. This is a shooting star Pokemon that lives up in the atmosphere, and depending on the minerals or whatever the hell is up in the atmosphere that they can eat, their color will change. They come in 7 unique colors, all of which are just like awesome. All of these shades that they chose for these colors are beautiful. Mwah. But you're not going to see the inside of Minior until it drops to 50% of its maximum HP, because of its unique ability, Shields Down. It will start the fight with this protective rocky shield it has across its body, but once it drops to low HP, it will shed this shell, become much faster and much stronger, and it will be able to sweep, given you set up a Shell Smash. Minior is also an interesting Shell Smash sweeper, because it gets Stab Acrobatics, which is very nice to use with the White Herb, and it can also run both physical and special moves, because it learns a good amount of both, and its stats are the same in both attacking stats. Yeah. Cool Pokemon. We like Minior. I think I used it in my very first playthrough of Gen 7 when they came out, and I had a lot of fun with it.
Hello and welcome to 21st Century. I'm Daljit Dhaliwal. Weapons of mass destruction.
THAR be weaponry boy! That's the name of this next category. It's Pokemon that have weapons, usually made of rocks, if that was not clear. Since we just talked about Minior that had shields down, let's talk about a Pokemon that always has a shield up. Shieldon and Bastiodon. These guys are not the most glamorous fossil Pokemon out there, but they are some of the first to actually be based off of dinosaurs. They are based off of the Ceratopsian family of dinosaurs, to be precise, which is the family that includes Triceratops, and that's all you need to know if you don't care about dinosaurs. Now, Shieldon is based off of a Protoceratops, which is one of the earliest Ceratopsians and didn't have any horns on its face yet. And Bastiodon, I would say, is most similar to a Pachyrhinosaurus because it's got that really big, thick nose. Pachyrhinosaurus didn't have the horn. Some people try to reconstruct it with the horn, and it looks dumb. It just had this really big, flat boss on its nose instead, which Bastiodon also has. Now, Bastiodon's face looks more like a castle wall than it does an actual dinosaur face, which makes a lot of sense. It is a big, fat shield. And while it may not be the prettiest, I know a couple of you alt bitches are looking at this giant bridge piercing that Bastiodon has, and you're probably jealous as fuck, because you're probably never going to get a piercing that big through your nose, unless you're crazy and you don't like seeing things, but yeah, give Bastiodon some respect, I say. But you can't really talk about Shieldon and Bastiodon without bringing up their counterparts, Cranidos and Rampardos. These guys were designed to be two sides of the same coin. Bastiodon is an immovable object, while Rampardos is an unstoppable force. Don't believe me? Look at their stats. Wow. Too bad they're both garbage. Bastiodon's steel and rock typing is not good defensively at all. You're 4 times weak to fighting and ground, and you have lots of other weaknesses as well. And Rampardos may have a super duper high attack with good coverage, but that's all it has. So it dies before it gets to really do anything. Now, these two are obviously based off of Pachycephalosaurus, the headbutting dinosaur. These guys definitely did headbutt. Do not fall into the fake news trying to convince you they did not. And they do a pretty good job of translating Pachycephalosaurs into Pokemon form, I would say. Now, Cranidos was actually my very first favorite Pokemon I ever had. Just when I was getting into Pokemon, I saw the episode of the anime where Rourke just beats the shit out of Ash with his Cranidos, and I loved it. I've always been a big paleontology kid, dino nerd, and this was the first dinosaur Pokemon I ever saw, so I fell in love with Cranidos. Even after I learned Rampardos was a thing, Cranidos remained my favorite. I think its design is just a little bit better, a little bit more sleek. I like the colors a little bit more with the lighter gray. Rampardos, just bigger and spikier, sort of. I do like its big, hunched-over back with the thing on its back. I don't like when they stand it up looking normal, though, in 3D. Or even in black and white. Make it hunched over. Make it look like it's running at me. That's when it looks best. Now, these guys get a couple of things wrong about Pachycephalosaurs. The Pokedex loves to talk about how these guys were hunters, which was not the case. These guys were definitely primarily herbivores. Maybe they were omnivores on occasion, like if they saw some meat, they might eat it if they could, do it safely. But they definitely were not actively hunting prey. Also, Rhypardos' spikes are obviously more plentiful and bigger than they are on Cranidos, but in real life, it was actually the younger Pachycephalosaurs that had more spikes than the adults did. So, they kind of got that flip-flop reversed a little bit. But these guys are still cool. I like them a lot. Cranidos is no longer my favorite Pokemon, but I still have a lot of fond memories and respect for it. Next up, we have Rhyhorn, Rhydon, and Rhyperior. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's a 3-stage Rock-type line. Why didn't you talk about it before? First of all, f*** you. Second of all, it was not a 3-stage line until Generation 4 when Rhyperior existed. Gens 1 to 3, it was just Rhyhorn and Rhydon. So these guys were not designed to be a 3-stage line in the first place. So that's why they don't count. Idiot. But yeah, these guys are loosely based off of rhinos. Rhyhorn is pretty much the only one that does look like a rhino. And I love Rhyhorn a lot. It's a very intricate design for Gen 1 standards. And just the way it's like rocky plating like fits over its body. I don't know, it's very satisfying to me. Rhydon then is also pretty cool. Definitely doesn't look like a rhino anymore. It's more just this weird reptile kaiju looking thing. But it's got that big drill for a horn, which is the weapon. That's why it's in this category. Also, you gotta show respects to Rhydon because it is the very first Pokemon design that we know of to exist. So, you know, thank you, Rhydon. Thank you for, you know, putting things in motion for us. And then we have Rhyperior. And most people do not like Rhyperior. I'm sympathetic to disliking Rhyperior. You know, it definitely takes Rhydon's design and goes in a very weird direction with it. But I really liked it as a kid, so I am nostalgia blind, and I think Rhyperior is really cool. The first Pokemon toy I ever recall actively really wanting was a Rhyperior toy at Toys R Us. And I got it, and then I played with it so much that one of its arms ended up falling off. And I knew about the Pokemon Beldum at this time. One of my friends had like a Beldum and a Metang toy, and I thought it was cool how Beldum was like the arm of Metang. And Rhyperior's arm is Beldum shaped, to put it lightly. So in my little made-up toy world that, you know, I just had as a kid, Rhyperior's arm became its own character in my little story whenever I played with it. I don't think it was a Beldum. I think it was just Rhyperior's arm, and that was its character. But, yeah, I don't know. I like Rhyperior. It has the stupid rock tail club thing. It has a weird construction vest thing on its body now, and its arms shoot out rocks. Sometimes it even shoots out Geodude, which I thought was hilarious as a kid. That's one of my favorite Pokedex entries, how it'll just sometimes, boom, Geodude. Yeah, I don't know. I like Rhyperior. I understand that most people do not, though. Next up, I'm not even sure if this one should really count, but we have Ogerpon. Specifically, Ogerpon with the Cornerstone Mask. Now, the Cornerstone Mask is the coolest one. Not even because it's a Rock-type mask. It is just the coolest one. The green and the dark gray and black looks very good on Ogerpon. However, it's more of a grass type that just so happens to have a rock type form sometimes. So, bonk, next Pokemon. I'm like a Cleavor, stealth rocking Leador. Comment down below if you knew what that was reference-wise. Cleavor is a pretty cool design. It is a split evolution to Scyther, who originally could only evolve into Scizor, who is a steel type. But Cleavor being introduced in Pokemon Legends Arceus, which is set in the past before, you know, steel types were all that common, I suppose. Cleavor is the default, or original evolution of Scyther, if you could call it that. And I'll be honest, Cleavor is definitely Gen 1 coded in its design. It's got the Gen 1 eyes, you know what I'm talking about. It has a very odd, human-like face, for some reason. But Scyther already kind of looks like a dinosaur, even though it's a mantis, so whatever, I guess. And the axes with which it uses to cleave on its hands are ginormous. I really love Cleavor's idle stance in 3D, how it's really hunched over, and you get a really good sense for how heavy these rock axes really are. Its arms look a little skinny for my liking. Maybe they're a little beefier, makes it seem a little bit stronger. But Cleavor is a very solid design. Stone Axe is a very fun move, setting up Stealth Rocks while being in attack, and a strong one at that because of its sharpness ability. I like it a lot. Cleavor is a good addition to Pokemon and to Scyther's line in general. Nice. And kind of on the topic of Scyther, we have Kabuto and Kabutops. Now this is another fossil line, and Kabutops has quite a bit of similarities to Scyther. Even more similarities to Scyther when you include Cleavor in the mix, who is a rock type. Obviously they have the sights and the kind of same body shape, and Kabutops is very old, so, you know, it's a fan theory to say that Kabutops eventually evolved into Scyther. Kabuto is still aquatic, it hangs out in the water for the most part, and while Kabutops is also aquatic, it can obviously go onto land, so it became Scyther, obviously. If Pokemon taxonomy works anything like real-life taxonomy, however, no f***ing shot. Horseshoe crabs are not closely related to praying mantises, literally at all. But, you know, it's Pokemon, it's made up, they can have whatever rules they want. Now, Kabuto is pretty cute. It is just a horseshoe crab without the tail, for some reason, though. The tail on the horseshoe crab is pretty iconic, but whatever, Kabutops kind of has it. And Kabutops is not really based on anything, really. It's just kind of a made-up looking beast, I suppose. But it's a very cool looking beast. Back in Pokemon X and Y, before Oras came out, I had a Ubers team that I built. It was a Kyogre team with a choice-banded Kabutops on it, and I just clicked choice-banded Kabutops moves and swept a lot of Uber legendary Pokemon. It was very fun. I liked that team a lot. It was one of my favorite ones that I ever made. And then Primal Groudon existed and completely invalidated it. So, whoops. Well, you know, we've been talking about a couple fossil Pokemon already, so I say, why don't we just finish off the fossils? Here's finishing the fossils, is what I call this segment.
Time's up! Now we'll begin the amazing tour through the ages of imaginary dinosaurs. Let's start with Alejandro.
Since we've kind of been on a Gen 1 train with, you know, Scyther and Kabutops and all that, let's talk about the final Kanto fossil that we have, Aerodactyl. Pterodactyls are not dinosaurs. So when I said Bastiodon was some of the first dinosaur-based fossils, I was correct. Anyways, Aerodactyl is interesting to me. It is the only rock-type fossil that does not evolve at all. It's a single stage, which is pretty unique. And, I'm not sure how I feel about Aerodactyl, to be perfectly honest with you. In the older Pokemon games where we still had sprite-based artwork and there was a bit of a smaller screen to work with, I think Aerodactyl works pretty well. It can look kind of menacing, look kind of cool, but as soon as you get into 2D illustrations, or God forbid 3D, Aerodactyl's design just kind of starts to fall apart. It's got this giant, stupid-looking mouth, which, to be fair, lots of pterosaurs did have stupid-looking mouths, but this one is just so wide and big, and its top jaw is so skinny and narrow, and its neck is just like paper thin. It barely looks like it should be even able to be it shouldn't even be able to hold its head up in the air from the looks of it. And then its wings are weird, not the wings themselves, but the hands. Why the f does it have hands? Like, to grab you with. Pterosaur, they have fingers up there. They don't have hands, though. I hate these hands. I hate that they look like they're gonna grab me. Why? Why does it have hands? It's flying. It doesn't need to grab things because it has wings. It has legs to pick stuff up. Why does it have hands? Get rid of the hands. I don't want to see the hands anymore. Oh! Jesus Christ! Mega Aerodactyl. One of the ugliest designs in the entire fucking franchise. Dear Lord, what were they thinking with this fucking design? To be fair, the hand part of the design, I guess, is my favorite. It kind of looks cool, having rocks in place of the fingers, but oh my god, do I hate this design. I was already iffy on Aerodactyl, and this just makes Aerodactyl look even stupider. How does this thing fly? Why does it have a giant rock goatee? It's just spikier. They didn't do anything interesting with this design. They just put giant spikes of coal coming out of its body and said, there we go, that's all we need to do. And you know, there's an argument to be said. that fossil Pokemon shouldn't be rock types. The only reason that they are rock types is because you revive them from fossils. You know, fossils are made of rock. You can't get an exact perfect copy from a fossil, so they're stuck with the rock type, some people like to say. That's not the case with Aerodactyl, though, because according to the Pokedex, this is what its original form looked like. The revived form, that's just what we're stuck with. But Mega Aerodactyl, that's what they all looked like back in the day, apparently, according to the Pokedex. Ugh, I hate it. This thing. One last thing, though, about Aerodactyl that I gotta mention. Since its inception, it has been the fastest rock type ever. No rock type has ever reached speeds that Aerodactyl has gotten to. So, good on you, Aerodactyl. You are single-handedly bringing up, like, the average base speed of all rock types everywhere. Still kind of ugly, though. Let's talk about a much better flying-type fossil. Archon and Archeops. I really love these guys. Archon, at least, is adorable, it's cute, and Archeops looks very cool and not really menacing, but very interesting in design. These guys are obviously based off of Archaeopteryx, which is the very first feathered dinosaur that we ever discovered. And its discovery is what led scientists to realize that birds are, in fact, descendants of dinosaurs, or they straight up just are dinosaurs. Now, we know these days that Archaeopteryx itself is not actually the direct ancestor to all modern-day birds. It's in its own little category. It is a bird-like dinosaur. It is not a bird itself. However, that does not change the fact that it is one of the most important fossil discoveries ever discovered, so it makes a lot of sense to make a Pokemon based off of it. Now, I really love that they went super colorful with the feathers on this guy. Obviously, modern-day birds are some of the most colorful animals around, and we actually know the colors of some dinosaur feathers, which is pretty interesting, and they were quite colorful. Some of them, anyways. Also, while Aerodactyl looks like complete garbage in 3D, I actually really like the 3D models and animations for these guys. Archon just looks like a dumb, stupid baby chicken thing, because that's basically what it is. And Archeops looks like it's fighting for its fucking life to stay in the air, because the Pokedex talks about how it's still not that good of a flyer. This is like the only good flying animation in 3D that I can think of anyways. Great job. Next up, we've got probably the weirdest fossil family in the franchise, Lily and Cradilly. What weirdos. Do you know what these guys are based off of? Because most people do not. These Pokemon are in fact based off of crinoids, which are animals, not plants, even though these guys are grass types. Now, crinoids are still alive today. You can find a couple of them out in the ocean these days, so it might be weird to have these guys as fossil Pokemon if they're still around these days in the real world. However, crinoids used to be way more common back in the day. But then, about 250 million years ago, during the Great Dying, also known as the worst mass extinction event that Earth has ever endured, the crinoids kind of fell off the face of the Earth, and barely any of them survived. So nowadays, they're not nearly as diverse as they used to be way back in the past. So it does make sense to make these guys fossils, especially since we have a lot of crinoid fossils. And I really like these guys a lot. I love their yellow eyes hiding in the dark. And Cradilly even has those fake eyes, and then its real eyes kind of look like it's inside of a mouth, which is very interesting. And the weird little tentacles they've got can stretch out super long to catch prey in the water. If I saw this thing coming towards me in the ocean, I would freak out. I would be scared. And these guys, they're a very good representation for a lot of the weird alien-looking life that we find in the fossil record. I love them a lot. Also, rock and grass, very unique typing. I know Ogerpon before had it, but these guys, they're the only real rock and grass types in my opinion. And while we're talking about Leap and Cradilly, we might as well knock out the other Gen 3 fossil, Anorith and Armaldo. These guys are based off of Anomalocaris, and Anorith, that is just an Anomalocaris, okay? I know Ammonite was like just an Ammonite, or just an Ammonite rather, but that is just like a cartoon Anomalocaris. This is not a complaint, by the way. I love Anomalocaris, I love Anorith, I even love Armaldo too. Armaldo seems to be less favored than Anorith from what I've seen online and from my friends, because Armaldo, kind of like Kabutops, it's not actually really based on anything, really. There's no animal that looks like this in the fossil record. You might be able to make an argument for sea scorpions, maybe, but yeah, this is just kind of another kaiju monster design that starts out as an Anomalocaris. Some people think that these are Armaldo's eyes. I was never fooled by that, never even for a second. I always realized that these were the eyes, but maybe you didn't. And Armaldo is very cool. It's a very intricate design for Gen 3, honestly. It's got lots of detail. I like the light blue and the yellow highlights that it's got. And there is one thing about the Pokedexes for this family that I have to bring up. For most fossil Pokemon, if they ever mention a date for when these guys were still alive, they are usually going to say 100 million years ago. And these guys are no exception. Anorith's Pokedex entry states that it lived 100 million years ago. And, you know, that sounds like a long time, right? And it is. But Anomalocaris did not exist 100 million years ago. It existed 500 million years ago, give or take. And it went extinct around 480 million years ago. So, I guess that's just more proof that the Pokemon family tree just doesn't give a shit about reality. But who really cares? It doesn't matter. Next up, Amora and Aurorus. I'll be honest, this might be my least favorite fossil line, anyways. I might like them more than Aerodactyl, but if we're including Mega Aerodactyl in that, then I definitely like these guys more. But, yeah, I don't know. I've grown to appreciate these guys more over time, but overall, they're not my favorites. Amora is very cute. It's very simple. It's got that sort of My Little Pony sort of look to it. And then Aurorus obviously has these very beautiful sails. The Aurora sails. Looks very cool. Very awesome. And these guys, they are based off of sauropods, or the long-necked dinosaurs. And those animals were huge. For the most part, anyways. The ones you think of, you know, like Brachiosaurus or Brontosaurus or Argentinosaurus, they're gigantic. Aurorus, on the other hand, is not that large, but that actually makes sense, because Aurorus is based off of Amargasaurus, which is actually a pretty small sauropod, all things considered. And it also had these really big sails, or neck spines, coming off of its neck. There's still debate as to what these sails actually looked like in real life, but it doesn't matter for Pokemon, because they didn't make it look like, it's not bones, you know? Whatever. These guys are Ice and Rock types, which is a very cool typing, not a very good typing, though. Lots of weaknesses. Oh my god, weaknesses galore. And they do have a cool ability. Refrigerate is very interesting, turning all normal-type moves into Ice-type moves, and making them stronger. It also has Snow Warning, which is another really good ability. I don't know. I like these guys. I'm just not crazy on them, is all I've got to say. And maybe the reason I'm not so crazy on Amora and Aurorus is because I am absolutely crazy about Tyrant and Tyrantrum. I saved the best fossils for last. Holy f***, do I love these guys. Tyrantrum is arguably my favorite Pokemon of all time, depending on the day. It is just so sick. Oh my god, dude. It's just a T-Rex, you know? It's just a T-Rex. It took until Generation 6 to get a T-Rex Pokemon. And to be fair, T-Rex is not even my favorite dinosaur, okay? My favorite dinosaur is Deinonychus. I'm a weirdo. But this is like the best T-Rex design you could possibly come up with. It's got that feathery beard, making it look all old and regal, alongside with like its big feathery frill or cape, making it look even more regal. And it's got the big rock crown, making it even look more regal, because T-Rex means Tyrant Lizard King. It's the king of the dinosaurs. It's got the giant, rocky, jaggedy-looking jaw. Its teeth are like made out of rocks. It's got that beautiful dark red color with the nice orange highlights. This thing's just perfect. I could not fathom coming up with a better T-Rex design than this. Holy shit, it's fucking awesome. And don't even get me started on the shiny. Oh my god, Aurora and Amoris have good shinies too. But these, oh my god, dude. I love these shinies so much that back in X and Y, when I actually used to breed Pokemon to use online, I tried to get a perfect IV shiny Tyrant that I could use. And after, like, you know, weeks of doing this, I eventually got one batch of eggs, like a batch of 5 eggs. 2 of them turned out to be shiny in the same batch. It was insane. One of them was 3 IVs, and the other was 4 IVs. I think it was missing special defense being perfect. I didn't care though. That's good enough. I used the shit out of that guy. Unfortunately, this was before Tyrantrum had access to Rock Head, so it didn't have its better ability. Strong Jaw is still cool, but Rock Head is what really makes this guy super duper fun to use in battle. Honestly, like one of the best head smash users in the franchise. It's so powerful, it's so good, it's so fun. I love Tyrantrum. It is just so fucking sick.
The stages of the game will also be based on famous battles which actually took place in ancient Japan. So here's this giant enemy crab.
Alright, got a little excited there. This next category I call Wow, Animal. Because, wow, that is an animal that is rock type. Wow! So what better animal to start off this topic with than probably the most animal of all time to lots of people? Dogs! Let's talk Rockruff and Lycanroc. This is one of the very few times where it seemed like Game Freak was actually pushing a rock type to be popular, because it is a cute, adorable dog in Rockruff, and it has 3 different forms that it can evolve into, which is crazy. You've got the midday form, the midnight form, and the dusk form, all of which have slightly different stats and abilities, but the midday form is kind of just completely outclassed by the dusk form, unfortunately for it. The midnight form avoids this fate by having a completely different stat spread, but it's still not very good. But it's unique, anyways. It's its own thing. It's not just 100% outclassed, I suppose. All of these designs are pretty solid. My least favorite in the past was definitely the Midnight form, but I've grown to appreciate it a lot more. And it's very interesting to have, you know, your dog Pokemon have 3 different evolutions, even if they are technically into the same Pokemon, just looking different. These guys are also fast rock types. Midnight form isn't that fast, but the other 2 are quite fast, which is very nice to see. And they also have their own signature move, Accelerock, which is kind of cool, I guess. But yeah, if I had to pick a favorite, I'd say the Dusk form, just because orange is my favorite color. But all of these guys also have really good shinies, which is nice. There are some other rock dogs that I like more than these guys, though, and that title would have to go to Hisuian Arcanine and Growlithe here.
Ryan, look out!
I've always been a fan of Growlithe and Arcanine. I think most people are. They're just very solid Gen 1 designs everyone probably has some sort of history with. And then going into Legends Arceus, where they get new rock-type variants, I don't know. I just like them a lot. You could argue that these guys should have always been rock and fire type, because they're based off of those rock statues in Japan or Korea or something. I'm a paleo guy. I don't know shit about human culture. I think I might like these guys more than the originals, to be honest with you. I know some people are iffy on Arcanine becoming this dark brown color instead of the nice sort of whitish color that Growlithe has. I think either would have looked fine, but I do like how Arcanine is very dark in coloration. It separates it more from the original form a little bit more. Arcanine is also arguably the best head smasher in the franchise, because it has Rock Head, it has Stab Head Smash, but it's also the only Rock Head Pokemon that has access to Flare Blitz, which hits pretty much anything that is somewhat comfortable switching into Head Smash. So, yeah, these guys are a whole lot of fun to use. I like them a lot. I'm glad that by these newer generations, they actually started giving rock types, like, unique things to do. Alright, we're about to dive into a whole whack of rock and water type Pokemon, but let's start this off with a Pokemon that probably should be water type, but isn't. Cloth. Cloth is a crab, and it is a pure rock type Pokemon introduced in Scarlet and Violet. Now, I don't really have much to say about Cloth. It's a funny design, I like it. Anger Shell is a very funny ability, but I did realize one thing. That's a nice voice crack. I did realize one thing that Cloth kind of insinuates here. We already had a rock-type crab. We had Dwebble and Crustle. However, they were also bug. Cloth, on the other hand, he is not a bug, but he is still a crab, and he is rock-type, just like Dwebble and Crustle are. So I propose the theory that cloth is proof of carcinization within the Pokemon universe. What do I mean by that? I mean to imply that Dwebble and Crustle are not actually crabs. I think they are bugs that evolved to look like crabs, which is exactly what happens with carcinization within crustaceans in real life. You know, the whole meme of the crab being the final form. I think cloth is proof of that exists in Pokemon. I will take no criticism. Moving on to all the rock and water types we have. First up, Relicanth. I fucking love Relicanth. Oh my god. Okay, so you could make an argument that I should have talked about Relicanth in the fossil section, because he kind of is a fossil, but he's a living fossil. Relicanth is based off of the coelacanth, which is a fish that scientists knew from the fossil record before they knew that it was still alive in the modern day. So for a while, we thought that coelacanths were completely extinct until some fisherman showed an alive one to a scientist, and the scientist was like, damn. But yeah, Relicanth is basically just a Pokemon version of a coelacanth, kind of in the same way of Anorith just being an Anomalocaris. But again, that is not a bad thing. It has this cool sort of map-looking design on its body with that little red spot, kind of, you know, X marks the spot type of deal. And he has this very funny Pokedex entry from Gen 7. I don't remember which game exactly, but Gen 7, one of them. And Relicanth is also a very good head-smashing Pokemon. Just ask Rourke about it in BDSP when you rematch him. Relicanth is also the only rock-type fish in the franchise, so woo! Corsola time. Just the Johto version, though. Corsola is adorable. I like it a lot. And you might not know this, but coral is an animal. I'll be honest with you, though. I do not understand how coral works as an animal. I just know that it is. So I put it in this section. Coral reefs are obviously a very big thing in real life, so it would make sense to make a Pokemon based off of coral. And it makes sense to make it a rock type as well, because coral is usually quite hard, and you know, it doesn't really move that much. Rocks don't really move that much. One thing that I kind of wish they that they could have considered, though, with Corsola, in real life, coral is very colorful, and I love Corsola's bright pink. I wouldn't change it. But it would be pretty cool if Corsola had, like, different patterns, or maybe even completely different colors, just kind of based at random, kind of like Minior, or like Unknown. You know, that's another Gen 2 Pokemon. Yeah, I don't know. It has a wonderful shiny, one of the best shinies, and yeah, Corsola, just a good Pokemon. I'm glad it exists. And then, another Pokemon that you might not know is based on an animal, Binacle and Barbaracle. Barnacles are animals. I think they're crustaceans. I think. And once again, this is a crustacean that is not a bug. Whoa! But yeah, these guys are kind of hideous looking, to be honest with you. I'm not a huge fan of this family. Binacle is weird, and Barbaracle is weirder. I've come to appreciate them a little bit more over the years. And honestly, I don't even have a problem with Barbaracle's weird hand for a face, like a lot of people do. My issue is its colors. It has, like, the most disgusting brown and pink combination known to man. I don't like it. But I do like the concept of a giant barnacle Megazord, which is what Barbaracle is. So, you do your thing, Barbaracle. Alright, we're on our last section now. This section, this is just kind of everyone else that didn't fit into other sections. So I'm gonna call it the other guys.
Wait! That man's an imposter. I'm the real... Guys, I don't think we have time for this.
And the first other guy I'd like to talk about is a Pokemon that I've wanted to talk about this whole f***ing time, but it took until now to get to it. Sudowoodo, and I guess Bonsly too, but mostly Sudowoodo. I love Sudowoodo. This guy's so silly and awesome, and I have a funny story about him, because back when I was a child, and I first learned about Pokemon's existence, I thought Pokemon was dumb and stupid. And I remember one time I was at my friend's house, and she got mad at me for something, I don't really remember, and she left me in the living room and said that I had to watch Pokemon that was playing on the TV, because we both didn't like it at the time. And I remember It was a Diamond and Pearl episode of the anime, and they were on a boat, and Sudowoodo was there. So Sudowoodo is one of the first Pokemon I ever saw. And honestly, Sudowoodo is a genius design. It is a rock type that pretends to be a tree, because rock and grass have kind of conflicting weaknesses and resistances with each other. You know, if you think it's a tree, or a plant, you might try to hit it with a flying type move or a fire type move, but rock types don't give a shit about that. He's gonna shrug that off no problem. And if you knew he was a rock, then you would hit him with like water or ground or grass, but you don't know he's a rock because he looks like a tree. You think he's a plant, so you're not gonna hit him with those super effective moves because against a grass type, those would all be resisted. It's genius. It's also the first pure rock type Pokemon in the franchise, because Gen 1 was allergic to anything that was not rock and ground, or rock and water, or Aerodactyl, I guess. But Sudowoodo, genius, genius, genius. I love it. Its name is also, like, maybe the best name in anything ever. Sudowoodo. It is fake wood. Sudowoodo. It's awesome. I love Sudowoodo. I wish it got any buffs or attention or anything at all, because it's a Gen 2 Pokemon, so it's absolute dicks. But I love it. Bonsly, I don't have so much to say about. It's a baby that was added after the fact, but it's nice. It's like a bonsai tree, and it has a butthole, in case you didn't know. Oh, also, Sudowoodo doesn't have great variety with its Pokedex entries, because pretty much all of them just say it disguises as a tree in a bunch of different words. But it does have this one really funny entry from Ultra Sun that I'm going to have to lean in to read. It's so popular with the elderly that there's a magazine devoted to this Pokemon. Fans obsess over the particular length and angle of its arms. I don't know. That's like the only Pokedex entry that doesn't talk about it looking like a tree. So, I like it. Good Pokemon. And while we're on the topic of rock types that look like plants, we might as well bring up Glimmit and Glamora, some of the newest rock types in the frame. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know what the fuck these things are based on, but they're super cool, and I love them a lot. They move around like underwater jellyfish, but they float around in the air in caves, and they're rock and poison type, which is awesome, just super cool typing. Like, those two things are, I don't know, rocks can be poisonous, like, I don't know, radioactive, I guess. It's not radioactive, though. And then they stick themselves into the cave walls, and they open up, and they look like flowers. Very bizarre Pokemon. They make me question. There's lots of questions. They're mysterious. I like it. And also, beautiful dark blue colors, I must say. I love seeing colors on rock types that are not just like gray and brown. And these guys, they're wonderful. Mwah. I love it.
The future strikes again. I don't know why the hell I did not talk about Glamora's competitive use. It's really good in competitive singles, and it had a little bit of use in doubles too. But Toxic Debris is such a cool ability. I like it a lot. Really makes Glamora feel way more unique than any other rock type that has come before it. Yeah, just thought I should mention that, since I didn't in the original recording.
And then we have Hisuian Avalugg. Sorry, buddy. Avalugg already was struggling to be relevant and be appreciated by most people. I've always liked Avalugg. I think it's funny. It's got like a coffee table, you know, haha, coffee table joke. And then Hisuian Avalugg is skinnier and has the weird shears on its face and becomes a worse defensive typing on a defensive Pokemon. I'll be honest, I don't know what the f they were thinking when they designed this thing, but I kind of like it. It's kind of cool. Technically, I could have added this guy into the last section because Avalugg is probably based off of Aedosaurs, but nobody knows what the f that is, so I elected to put it here instead. Also, my friend Derek says that it should learn Ice Shard, and I agree, but it doesn't. And now we have a bunch of legendary Pokemon, or legendary adjacent Pokemon, I guess. And let's talk about my least favorite ones first, so we don't end on a sour note. Terrakion and Iron Boulder. We'll just lump these two together because they're like the same fucking thing. Ugly is what I would use to describe these guys. Terrakion was always my least favorite of, like, the Swords of Justice, like that little quartet or trio, whatever you want to lump them up as. That whole grouping is ugly and kind of disgusting, in my opinion. Terrakion is the worst, though. I don't know what it's supposed to be. Is it a horse? Is it a rhino? You better not say it's a rhino. Rhinos don't look like that. But it's bulky, I guess. Just weird. It just looks weird. Its face looks weird and awkward. I don't really like this guy. I have to give it respect for being one of the only competitively viable rock types, though. I kind of don't like that because it's ugly and that means I have to look at it more. But rock and fighting is a unique typing. I do like that typing quite a bit. And Iron Boulder, I guess I like a little bit more because it has more orange, and I like orange. But yeah, these two, not the cream of the crop when it comes to rock types, unfortunately. And while we're on the topic of Paradox Pokemon, we might as well talk about Iron Thorns next. I didn't talk about Iron Thorns with Tyranitar before, because I had to talk about the whole Tyranitar line, and also Mega Tyranitar, so that just would have been too much Tyranitar. But Iron Thorns is obviously a Mecha Godzilla reference, and it's alright. In terms of future Paradox Pokemon, it's one of my favorites, I suppose. I do like the really bright green that it has, and I think its shiny looks pretty good, even though all of them are kind of chrome, but this one looks especially good with the chrome. Rock Electric is also cool typing, I like that a lot, but Iron Thorns is kind of just strictly worse than Tyranitar in every way. It has worse stats, it has worse moves, the typing is arguably worse? I really don't know. Rock and Dark is not great either. We'll leave that as a draw, I suppose. But one thing that really pisses me off about Iron Thorns is that, its ability. I know all the future Paradoxes have Quirk Drive. It's like their little connecting thing. They get boosted in the electric terrain. But come on, dude. Sandstorm is literally Tyranitar's entire f***ing, like, gimmick at this point. You couldn't give Iron Thorns, like, Electric Surge or even Hadron Engine just to match it. Like, really? 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 Come on, dude. Come on. Alright, last up, we've only got two more rock types. My voice is dying. These two, they're both Ultra Beasts. They are Ultra Beasts called Nihilego and Stakataka. Let's talk Nihilego first. Nihilego is the first rock and poison type, and like I said with Glamora, that is a very cool typing. And Nihilego is kind of purposefully designed to not look like a rock type. It is very soft-bodied, it's very light, it's even transparent, it's kind of like glass, and the glass is where it gets the rock typing from because of sand. Even though Palisand is a ground type, it's not a rock type, but we don't get into that here. Nihilego, like all the Ultra Beasts, it's designed to look very alien and unlike anything else that we've seen in Pokemon before, and they did a very good job with it. I'm a big fan of Nihilego. It's also one of the only special attacking rock types. And yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what else to say about Nihilego other than it looks sick and cool, and I love how weird it is. Stakataka isn't quite as weird as Nihilego. It also has a worse typing, being Rock and Steel, unfortunately for it. But it's a very, very cool design still, I'd say. I've always thought that this thing looks like it comes straight out of Portal. I kind of wish that its shiny was the same, but just with orange highlights, or maybe if it was white and orange. But, you know, it's very cool. It is a colony of small creatures that make up one Pokemon. Each of those bricks is its own entity. I always like when Pokemon does that. Same thing with like Tandemaus and other things. Very cool. Also, Stakataka is very funny in VGC because its defense is so fucking high that players would have to deliberately make it worse so that they could boost its attack with its Beast Boost ability instead of its defense. So it could become a strong sweeper in Trick Room because look at that speed stat. Nothing is outslowing this guy. But there we have it. That's all the rock types. What do you think of rock types? Let me know down below in the comments down below. But what did we learn today? 1, I really like rock types. 2, One thing I didn't say before about fossil Pokemon, but fossils are a very good excuse for Game Freak to kind of make a not rocky design with rock types, even though a lot of the time they do kind of throw rocky elements onto there. But, 3, last thing I'd like to mention about rocks. Why the f*** is there no rock and ghost type yet? We've had so many opportunities. Look at all these ghosts that are rock or rock adjacent. What's your problem, Game Freak? That's such a cool typing! It's not even that good competitively, okay? But I want it. I want a rock and ghost type. Give me rock ghost now! Yeah, anyways, I don't know if there'll ever be another video. Bye-bye.
Hi, I just wanted to tell you guys, my next video, it will be Pokemon related. It's not going to be like this one at all, though. If you like this video, you can stick around, but it's not going to be long. It's not going to be discussion. Yeah.